CEO Live Talks.
I am Dr. Swannie Jett, and I have a passion for public health for over 30 years. Now, I'm in a position to affect change, and these are the critical conversations about health in our community with the people who can help me make those changes. Good afternoon. Welcome to CEO Live Talks. I'm your host, Dr. Swannie Jett, and today on my set, I have Dr. Raymond Burse with me. Good morning, sir.
Good morning
How you doing?
I'm doing fine, doing okay.
Well, first, as we formally do, I talk a little bit about your background. So people get an idea of who you are and what made you as you are today, the person you have come to be. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, what I usually tell folks, I'm a little country boy from Hopkinsville, Kentucky, and people start saying, "Oh, I don't have any money to give you, so don't give me a story." But I was born in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. I am the youngest of 13 children, and grew up, attended public schools in Hopkinsville. From there, went on to Center College in Danville,
So
Kentucky.
let me ask you a question before you go there. Did you do any farming? Because Hopkinsville is a nice little city.
It's a rural agricultural area.
Okay.
So I didn't. As the farming we did was the garden that my dad planted. So so lots that were next to our house
Right.
and in the community, he did those gardens, and so we worked in the garden with him and doing that. I had an uncle who had a farm, and we would visit that farm periodically. But no, I didn't actually work on the farm.
Okay.
All
right.
So from Hopkinsville went on to Center College in Danville, Kentucky,
Right.
and what Center was fortunate enough to a number of things. One, I got a good education that was paid for by them, which was great. But I was named a Rhodes Scholar while I was at Center, which gave me an opportunity to go to Oxford University in England to study at Oxford University for 2 years as a Rhodes Scholar. Did organic chemistry while I was at Oxford. And then on my way back to Kentucky, stopped off in Cambridge, Massachusetts at Harvard. I went to Harvard Law School. From Harvard Law School, made the decision to come back to Kentucky. And the reason I ended up coming back was my first year of law school, I clerked for a law firm here in Louisville. It was Wyatt Grafton and Sloss then, now it's Wyatt Turner and Combs. And the managing partner for that law firm was a Yale Law School graduate. He had clerked at the U.S. Supreme Court. And my question to him was, given he had gotten a law degree from Yale, was a Supreme Court clerk, why would you come back to Louisville, Kentucky? And his response to me, so I had a choice. I could have been a little fish in a big pond or a big fish in a little pond. And so I chose to be a big fish in a little pond. And it was interesting in terms of Gordon telling me that. So I made a decision to come back to Kentucky and join the law firm and had worked with them for, I guess, almost 6 years. And then John Y. Brown got elected governor of Kentucky, reestablished the Council on Post-Secondary Education. I got involved with that. And also at that period in time is where we had what we call the Adams States litigation, which was the feds were suing states over the situation where they had failed to desegregate their public institutions of higher education, the HBCUs. And Kentucky got one of the Adams States letters, and Kentucky's response was, if we close Kentucky State, we don't have a problem.
Wow.
And so I took on the battle of fighting on the council for Kentucky State. And through that process, not expecting to leave my law practice, enjoying it, got asked to come and be the interim president of Kentucky State. Went and did that. I guess originally for almost 9 years.
Okay.
But
let's put a pin in that, because you done bypassed a lot of information, and I got to dissect that, right?
Okay.
One of 13 kids.
One of 13.
Okay. How did your family manage that?
Well, one of the things I told so again, the age range, the spread of ages was probably almost 30 years.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So not all of us was at home at one time. So when I was there were I guess growing up there were 9 of us there, and then it dwindled down, and then ended up with only 4 of us being there.
Okay.
So that was it. And then you ask, how did my dad feed all of those folks?
Right.
So we had our own garden, so we did a lot of gardening, and so we raised vegetables and those kinds of things. He had hogs, and so every November, usually around Thanksgiving, we had a hog killing and all of that.
Okay.
And so it was living off the land in terms of where he was, and then raising things. Of course, we had some chickens, and every Sunday morning or Saturday night, the chickens got their heads rang. So and that's how we.
And you was out there doing it.
Yeah, out there doing it, right? So, but that's how we survived. My dad was a plumber with the Corps of Engineers, and worked at Fort Campbell for a number of years, and so my mother was really a stay-at-home housewife. So
and so I'm just curious, what are your other siblings doing? Because you're highly accomplished. So
well, at this point, there are only 3 of us still alive.
Wow.
Still alive. So I have my sister that's still living, just turned 90 back in June of last year.
She's probably the oldest, right?
Well, she is actually, she was 7th in line. So my oldest brothers and sisters are now deceased. And then I got a brother who the 2 of us, I was born in 51, he was born in 47, and we sort of grew up together. So wherever he went, I went and followed him.
Wow.
I tell him, tease him all the time. He went to Attucks High School, which was the all-black high school in Hopkinsville.
Okay.
And part of what they did at Attucks every week was they had spelling tests. They had a language test. And my job when he was in high school was to call out his words and have him spell them and give definitions.
Right.
And I tell him he doesn't realize that his having done that helped my academic achievement and improvement in terms of where I was, because I learned words through that process I never would have known, the definition of them and all of that. So, and then the other thing I should add is my parents were big on education. So my father got as far as the 3rd grade, my mother as a 7th, but they were convinced that all of their kids would get a good education, and so they pushed it in the house.
They pushed that, and I know the common nomenclature at that time was, you're going to be a medical doctor or you're going to be a lawyer.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly it.
And because I remember hearing it. My mom really didn't say it, but I remember those were the 2 areas that they were pushing when I was in school. Right. So what did your brother end up doing?
He ended up being a route salesman for General Foods in Chicago. It's where he the one that was closest to me.
Cold.
Yeah.
Okay. So you was an athlete.
Yeah, I played a little ball here and there.
Played a little ball. Just a little ball? Come on now.
No, I was fortunate enough to I ended up playing football. Played football in high school. Ended up playing football in college. I also ran track.
But you didn't just end up playing. Come on, tell a full story of what you did at center. Because that time frame is important.
I guess it really is. When I went to center in 1969 as a freshman, on center's campus, there were 11 African-American students and a student body of a little over 700. Of the 11 students, 8 were men, and 7 of the 8 men were athletes. And so I ended up playing football at center. I guess I tell folks, I'm one of the last old-time 2-way players. So I played both offense and defense. Came off the field for kickoffs and punts, and had a pretty outstanding career in terms of center. Ended up my senior year was voted the most valuable player on the team, and so a lot of folks think that helped propel me to my Rhodes Scholarship.
It probably did, because I know. So my unit, while I make a reference to it, was in Danville.
Okay.
So my military unit that I deployed was 410 Quartermaster out of Danville. And we deployed in 2006 to Iraq out of Danville.
Okay.
So I'm very familiar with Danville instead of college. And there's still very few African Americans in Danville today. There are some, I got friends there, so I'm very familiar. So I can only imagine the climate in 1969?
Let me tell you, I give the Danville African American community a lot of credit for the success of the African American students who were at Center, because but for having those African Americans in that community and the ability to go, church on Sunday morning with them. Made a real difference. It was almost like the people in that community, particularly the older African American female, sort of embraced us as their own kids, treated us as their own kids.
Okay.
And so on Sunday morning, whether we went to First Baptist or we went to St. James, they welcome us with open arms. And when I was at Center, so church service 11 o'clock in the morning. Center served lunch at about that time. So if you didn't get back to campus by 1 o'clock, you didn't eat on that day. But what was the beauty of it was at those churches, at St. James and at First Baptist, they served meals after the church service. And
Always
so
do.
and so they embraced us, brought us in and said, you ain't got to worry, rush back to campus. You stay here, we'll take care of you. And they did that. And so they became sort of a home away from home,
Second
a
family.
support mechanism for us. And I say I give them, they help make the environment bearable
Right.
for us.
At Park Duval Community Health Centers, we go beyond medicine, breaking barriers to care across Louisville, Taylorsville, and Eminence, Kentucky. From primary care and dental to behavioral health and pharmacy support, we serve thousands, many facing financial hardship. With 7 locations and a bilingual staff, we welcome everyone because PDCHC, your health is our mission. We are Park Duval for everybody, everywhere.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Park Duval. My name is Desmond Pritchard. I'm your Chief HR Officer here at Park Duval. I'm located normally 9 times out of 10 at the Wilson location. I'm beyond honored to support our community, to work with our community. There's a lot ahead of us. We have a lot we're ready to do, we're willing to do, and we can't wait to have you on board, to have you doing it with us.
And I'm assuming you dealt with a lot of racial issues in that environment. So what helped you overcome that at that time and, become a star athlete?
Well, what you do is, I guess let me just back up. When I was expecting when I graduated from elementary school in Hopkinsville that I was going to get ready to be able to go to Attucks High School, the all-black high school.
Okay.
That's where we all went. In fact, the county paid the city money for students who lived in the county to attend the all-black high school.
Wow.
And so when I got to be the 8th grade, I was expecting I was going to Attucks High School.
Right.
And that spring they announced, no, that's not going to happen. The county is no longer going to pay, and you're going to go to the integrated white high school. And one of the things, so my elementary school was, of course, all black teachers, all black students, and all of that. And we were taught and really talked to about that time when we were getting ready to go, is that this is an opportunity for you, but you have to understand you're as good, as capable, and as smart as any of those students. And we were prepared for it. So when we did our visit, sort of orientation visit, one of the things we had to write up when we got back was, what did you learn and what did you think of where it was? I was the only one in my class who wrote about, I think that I'm as good as any of the others and that I can compete and do well.
Okay.
That was a drive. And like I said, my parents didn't demand from us excellent, but they expected us to do our best, whatever. My dad was also, if you started, you got to finish it in terms of doing it. And so that prepared me for the environment at Center. Being one of only 11 African American students on that campus was a lonely undertaking sometimes. Again, I tell you, we had St. James and we had First Baptist, which helped us, but it really made a real difference. One of the things that happened to me while I was in Danville was I ended up being a plaintiff in a lawsuit against the barbershops in Danville because the barbers would not cut black people's hair.
Wow.
There was a barbershop owned by an African American with all black barbers who cut only white folks' hair.
Get out of here.
Yes, it was. And so myself
Wow.
and two other African American males, we decided to take it on. We filed a lawsuit in the Eastern District of Kentucky, and we won. And so we were responsible for desegregating barbershops in Danville and all of Eastern Kentucky. So,
But the logical part, the illogical part, it's a black barber that knows how to cut my hair,
yeah,
and you won't cut my hair.
right,
So
right.
I'm confused.
So the day we were doing the test, they would tell some of the barbers said, "Oh, we don't know how to cut your hair." Well, say, "Can you give me a shampoo?" "Oh, we can't shampoo it either." So it was interesting, but it was just part of my development as an individual, understanding what you need to do to be successful and achieving in society.
But you understood too, which a lot of people probably still don't today. You understood you're right, right, and you understood that you noticed something was wrong about the system, and you want to change that.
Right.
The other aspect too is because I see this happening, both ways. A lot of people, well, some people I would say, that have faced, people calling them the N word or saying racial stuff at them or doing things to them, they hold spite for years, right? What made you not go that course?
Well, I guess for me is I wanted to make a difference, and if you hold in spite, it holds back your ability to do the things and utilize your talents to the utmost to achieve what you wanted to do.
Right.
My parents were individuals who taught us to work hard, to do the things we need to do, and that the way you deal with people who didn't like you because of race is that you outperform them. You show them that you're better. You outwork them, and you basically put them in a position of sort of embarrassing them in terms of where they are. But that's where don't be mistaken that I don't have some feelings in terms of how I have been treated as an African American in this country, in this community. I have those.
Okay.
The question is, how do I control that, and how do I manifest in my performance and what I do to combat that?
Right.
To me is, I really don't believe that there's anybody that will outwork me or outperform me on anything.
Right.
I just believe that. That's because my mother instilled in me that. And she would tell you, you're smart, you can do whatever you want to do. I had one of my sisters used to tell me, said the great thing about knowledge is that once it's instilled in you, they can't take it away from you.
Right. Yeah, I used to say, and I was taught, once you get that degree, nobody can take that from you.
Right.
But sometimes, and from academics, why do I have to be twice as better? Right? Because shouldn't I be treated the same as equal? And I say that now because now we're facing the backlash from Shedeur Sanders, which should have been drafted in the first round,
yeah.
to the fifth round.
Yeah.
And I know I watched how Archie Manning actually guided his kids as to where to go, what teams not to do that. And then all of a sudden, Deion Sanders is doing the same thing, and there's backlash.
Yeah.
So, you've been around and you've seen this in a circular fashion. What do you think about that?
Well, first of all, I'm offended by, why an African American cannot have and say the same things as folks who don't necessarily look like us.
Right.
It is heartbreaking, and you think that we will make progress in terms of where it is, but it seems the more progress we make, we regress back to some of the old things. The reality is that some people can't get over the fact that there are people who look like us who can outperform them and do a much better job in terms of lots of things. And it's not because we're trying to outperform. It's because it's our natural ability in terms of where we are and where we are as a people and as individuals. I find it heartbreaking that you have a young man of that skill set who, clearly was a first round choice,
Right.
and then sort of falls through that. But in our society, as much progress as has been made, we go through this regression of going back, and some of those same old nasty things that we thought were behind us rear their heads and come back again.
What you show up in is not what matters, it's how you show up.
Right.
So if you can articulate from your heart, they'll forget what you got on.
Because a lot of people want to Google
Yes.
medicine now,
Yes,
and it's very difficult.
it is. Would you Google if you had some sort of ailment that you were curious about?
I'm an epidemiologist by training,
Okay,
so
fair. So you know.
Folks, what are your credentials? And sometimes you have to pull them out and say, okay, here's this degree, here's that. You're like, oh, okay, maybe we should listen to you.
We're going to build a $40 million facility that allows parents to sleep better at night.
I was watching this thing on PTSD, and they were talking about people in war, and they were like, a human beings are not wired to perennially be on alert, in a state of alert.
Right, that's your
And that's what happens
cortisol.
when you're at war.
yeah, your cortisol level continues to go up, the adrenaline gland.
And that's what's happening to Black people.
It's important to have people around who know the history,
Right.
because the young kids coming up don't understand what's happening.
Right.
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 So, how do we teach people how to deal with society in that fashion?
Well, I think the longer I live, the more I'm coming to the conclusion that, as Kevin Cosby would say, we have to have our own thing, our own school, our own undertaking, and we have to take on the responsibility for teaching our kids what the history is, teaching them how to survive, giving them the life skills that we have gotten. When you look at the sort of the backlash that's taking place in this country, you're just trying to whitewash, rewrite history in terms of events. Don't want kids to know their history, and really don't want white kids to know what has happened in the history of America in terms of where it is. People got a wake up call in 2020 when they saw all those young white kids parading and protesting in the street, and they try to figure out what in the world's happened. And today we're living with the repercussions of that, because they're trying to say, they don't need to study that history. They don't need to know that, because really it changes them in terms of how they react and what they do. But for us, I think we have to take on the ownership and responsibility for teaching our kids. I have 3 sons, and I can tell you that Kim and I, my wife, have spent their entire lives teaching them about history, showing them events, exposing them to things, and showing them where things happen. One of my saddest moments was when I guess Eric must have been maybe 3 years, 4 years old. We're at a soccer match out in the southern part of the county, and the 2 older were playing soccer. So Kim and I were, and Eric was just playing with a young kid, and he came back and said, with tears in his eyes, and said, that kid over there told me he can't play with me because I'm a Black person. And I'm saying, what? Tell my 3-year-old that.
Wow.
I wanted to go and grab his parents, the kid's parents, wherever they were, but I just told Eric, that's life. Prepare yourself for it. That event, I think, has helped to shape his world in terms of how he looks, how he responds and does things. So it's incumbent on parents to teach their kids their history and show them, this is how you respond in terms of that. I think back with Eric. Eric was, when he was in middle school at Barrett, was the outstanding student at Barrett. He was an outstanding student when he was at Manual, and I'm thinking that event and the way we used it helped shape him and prepare him and make him the young man he is today.
Yeah, the interesting thing, and how old is Eric now?
Eric is now 31.
So my daughter is 5, and had to deal with that at school. right? So that tells you nothing has changed. And I had to tell her, I said, baby, your skin is fine,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Because she's a little bit darker than me, but looks like me. I said, there's nothing wrong with you. You are beautiful,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You sexy chocolate.
Yeah.
They call it chocolate jar.
All right.
You know?
Fantastic.
So, but I tell her all the time, I said, you're going to be darker than most people, but your skin is beautiful.
Yeah.
People are tanning to get to your color.
Yeah.
So,
That's the way it works.
acknowledge that. You know, the interesting thing is there is backlash from what has happened in protests in 2020 and 2021. And so the country now is reverting back. But it's happening even worse and I would say, in education. You know, what do you think about House Bill 4?
It is a major step backwards in terms of where we are. You know, Kentucky, you know, we have never led the nation in terms of educational achievement or educational attainment.
Hey, say that again.
Yeah, we've never led the nation. And so we do things that handicap and take us back. So, you know, House Bill 4 in this provision is a major step back. It handicaps teaching and learning in terms of what needs to take place. And I think it places professors in a quandary is what can I say or what can I do in my classroom in terms of teaching folks to be able to do that. You know, one of the versions of the bill had a provision in there that if you felt offended or what else, you could file a complaint with the Attorney General and have them investigate, you know, what was being said and taught in the classroom. Wow. You know, it's sort of unreal. When we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I like Andy Bashir said, you know, it's a 3-letter acronym, not a 4-letter word.
Right.
Is people really don't understand. So diversity, equity, and inclusion wasn't about giving people who look like us an added advantage.
Right.
It was to create an inclusive environment where we all learn from one another in terms of and we build a society, sort of the society that's really envisioned in terms of treating everybody right, doing those things that supposedly the good Christians do and all of those. For me, I think it's going to be a major step back because what it does say is for students that have needs, you're going to be suspect in terms of what kind of support do you provide for them in terms of where it was. You know, when Terrell Bell was Secretary of Education in the Reagan administration, and heavens forbid I use something from the Reagan administration.
Heaven forbid.
But what Terrell Bell used to talk about the education, and he said education for students is like a glass. For some students who come to the classroom, they come with that glass half full. Some they come with a third full. Some come it's already full. Part of the education process is to make certain that every student, when they leave, their glass is full. So you provide for them what they need to be complete and full in terms of that. Right. This bill, the way it is written and what the expectations are, institutions are going to be a little reluctant to provide for every student, every individual student, what that student needs to be successful. And we should be about the business and want to make students successful. Right. And that seems to be not the primary objective.